Hello and welcome or welcome back to Language Culture and Dr. Lou. And today I'd like to talk about this book I read that um, implies that maybe if we use the right words to frame a request, that we can really get people to cooperate. So, theory is using the right words can get people to do what you want. And this book is called Magic Words: What to Say to Get Your Way. And it's written by Jonah Berger. He's a marketing professor at the University of Pennsylvania. And so I thought, yeah, why not explore what he's saying? Because I mean, in my mind, I think it would probably work, and there's some scientific evidence to back it up. So when I'm talking about using the right words to get people to do what you want, I'm not just talking about making it polite, like with please and thank you, etc. That's always good. It's always good to be polite. But what would be an even more effective way to frame your language and frame your request in a way that gets people to really want to do these things, to want to do the things that you're suggesting that they do? And the little trick in all of this relies upon one aspect of human psychology, which is that people in general, we want to see ourselves in a positive light. And also, we want other people to see us in a positive light as well. So that's just something, yeah, that humans generally desire to be seen in a positive light by others, as well as to see ourselves a good way. And so this frames around using people, whatever identities that people would desire to have that have positive attributes. So you're going to take advantage of this when you're making requests. And what I mean by identities is that, like, if we want to see ourselves in a positive way, we're not going to want to see ourselves as a cheater or as a loser, for instance. I mean, if you think about it, cheating is pretty bad, whether I'm talking cheating on a spouse or cheating on an exam. Either way, cheating is seen as a bad thing. But what's even so much worse is being labeled as a cheater. Nobody wants to see themselves labeled as a cheater, right? Um, and same thing with losing. Losing is bad enough, but nobody wants to be seen as a loser. And I know this by personal experience. I was on a soccer team in high school that we only won 2 games all season long, but we didn't really think of ourselves as losers so much as just people who lost a bunch of games. And so that made it a little better that we didn't, count ourselves as losers. And so, yeah, so not being a cheater, not being a loser, these would be things that people, yeah, that they would want to avoid incorporated in their identity. Now, what about some more positive aspects? People want to see themselves in a good light, in a good way. So, if you're rather than someone just saying that they run a lot or they like to run, if they call themselves a runner, like I'm a runner, that is part of their identity. And then they're even more likely to continue running because this feature, this action will be seen as more permanent, more long lasting. So then you just keep on doing it because it's part of who you are. Kind of like when we are teaching people to read, and we don't just want them to sometimes read. We want them to consider themselves a reader, which makes it really part of their personality and them more likely to do it. And so, if people are um, wanting to feel good about their grades, they might adopt an identity of being a straight A student. And that might, yeah, inspire them to work a little harder at school. speaking of working hard, if somebody gets labeled as a hard worker and they accept that label, they accept that identity, they might themselves end up working nice and hard to make sure they live up to it all. And it's one thing to call yourself like good at cooking, but if you identify as a chef, that brings it to a whole new level. You'll be more likely to want to cook for different occasions and all that. So that's what I'm talking about. The trick is sort of trying to exploit desired identities, exploit positive attributes that people want to assign to themselves in order to get them to be a little more cooperative and to do the actions that you're suggesting that they do. And so, what's a good example of where this all comes from? And this was a study done in 2014, so a little over a decade ago, by Stanford University, specifically by Christopher Bryan, Allison Master, and Gregory Walton. Um, and again, this was way back in 2014, so it's not a brand new study, but it's right on point with what this little trick is to getting people to do what you want to cooperate. And the study is called, the paper that was published on the study is called Helping versus Being a Helper, invoking the self to increase helping in young children. So invoking the self means invoking some aspect of an identity that they would like to see in themselves to get them to help on things. So how was that study really conducted? You had multiple groups of kids, groups of preschoolers. So we're talking 5-year-olds, asked, and they were being asked to help clean up the classroom at the end of the day or at the middle of the day, whenever they were being asked to help clean the classroom. And so, how the study was set up is they asked some students, uh, uh, some of them were asked, half of them exactly were asked, can you help clean? So that's one way to pose the question. Another way to pose the question, which means pretty much the exact same thing to get people to try, a student to try to clean, is going to be, can you be a helper and clean up? And so the other half of the students were asked the question that way, asking, can you be a helper and clean up? So the key difference here is we're including a possible positive identity of a helper in the one question and not in the other. And so what it turned out as a result, it really, really worked to include the term helper, to be a helper in your question to frame them. You literally got about 30% more students were were willing to clean if they were posed the question that way. Can you be a helper and clean up? And this is not because they actually wanted to clean up anymore. They didn't really want to clean up, but among the kids who didn't want to clean up, often they did want to be seen as a helper. They wanted to be a helper. So framing the question that way, can you be a helper? Got them to actually participate in helping out, cleaning up the classroom. And so, yeah, and these were just 5-year-olds, but this doesn't just work on 5-year-olds, okay? That's just one good example, one poignant example of a study that points out that, yeah, if you include something positive they would like to see in themselves when you're posing the question, like some aspect of identity that they would like to take on, they are so much more likely to cooperate. They're so much more likely to do the actions that you're suggesting. And so it doesn't just apply to little kids. Again, it works on adults too. And so what the trick is you want to frame your request. You want to frame the question when you're asking for help or asking for people to do something. You want to frame it to appeal to an identity that they desire to have. Um, so for example, if you are at work and you have this group project going on and you need someone to lead it, you need someone to take the lead on it and to get things all rolling together. It might work better rather than asking, uh, can you lead? Can you lead on this project? Instead of framing it that way, you might ask, can you be a leader? So if the person you're asking would like to consider themselves a leader, they're more likely to say yes to this request. And same thing, instead of just telling someone, okay, you should really innovate right now, you should absolutely innovate, might be more effective if you say, oh, how about you, if you could be an innovator right here? Do you want to be an innovator? Can you be an innovator here? They might actually be find that idea of being an innovator appealing enough where they want to go ahead and do it and they will cooperate and do what you're asking. Same thing if I got the last example for, let's say someone is either you're trying to get them to register to vote, or there's someone who is registered to vote but has not ever voted before, or they're thinking they're not sure if they want to bother voting in the upcoming election, and you want to encourage them to do this. You might say, do you want to be a voter? As in, if they see being a voter as something that would be respected by others, then they're more likely to say yes than if you just ask them, do you want to vote? Because what you're trying to do here is change the accents. Instead of just asking for an action, switch it into framing an identity, a positive identity for them, and they might very well go ahead and, yeah, say yes, they're going to do it. So that's very cool. So that's a little trick here. The right words in question would be if you can use, well, a noun to frame a request you're giving in a way that would assign a positive identity to that person. If they do it, then yeah, they're more likely to be able to do it. Well, they're more likely to want to do it out of, in a way, kind of self-interest. They're trying to look upon themselves in a positive light and have other people see them in a positive light. So maybe just framing your question that way, like asking if someone wants to be a helper, or they want to be a leader, or if they can be an innovator. All of these might have a lot more uh, positive results, a lot better outcomes of that request than just asking them to help or to lead or to innovate, etc. So there you go. That is one little trick to help you use language to help get people to cooperate and get people to do what you want. And so one more time, I'd like to point out, if you want to hear more about this little linguistic trick, and although this Professor Jonah Berger, he's not a professor of linguistics, he's a professor of marketing, is definitely a little language trick you can use that may very well result in you getting a lot of help that you're desiring. And it's mostly about assigning a really positive attribute to the person that you're asking to help you out with something. So there you go. And so thank you so much for watching this video. Please do give it a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, please do consider subscribing. I would appreciate that very much. And it would go a long way to help a tiny little channel like mine. And so, yeah, looking forward to talking to you again in the next video. So until then, catch you around next time. Bye bye.